welcome to another episode of Malachi's Message, Toxic Mold Sex Stories. I'm Elizabeth Kripe, Executive Director and co-founder of Malachi's Message. Co-hosting today is Emily Rochelle. She's the co-founder and board director of Malachi's Message. We have just a unique privilege today. We actually get to interview and hear from one of our applicants for assistance. So the Piper family has applied for assistance, they've been accepted for assistance, and their story is one that when we came across it, we knew had to be shared. So we are actually doing a two-part podcast and video series with them. Today, we're going to talk about their mold journey and their healing process and their medical needs. And then tomorrow, we're going to dive more into their home health and the process of finding mold in their home, inspectors. And it is a bizarre journey, one that we're so excited. Those listening get to join us on. Lisa, we've been wanting to do this for a while, and we are just so excited. Thank you for being willing to share your story with people who are going to be listening to this.
Oh, thank you so much for the opportunity to tell my story. I think it's important. Thank you.
Lisa, can you go into, before y'all went into this nightmare, what was your life and your family's life like before y'all bought this home that ended up just devastating your health and your finances?
Yeah, like night and day difference. So before mold, our life was very, very different. We had such a full life. It was very colorful and rich, and we went places, did things. All of us were very active and doing so much. So my two kiddos, they're adults. They're now 22 and 23. My oldest was very in college and very active with color guards. She was in competitive collegiate color guards. She was actually a captain. Very athletic, very determined, and just doing so much, big course load in school and going through so much there. Very full life. And then of course my youngest, so my youngest goes by they, them. So when you hear me say they, you'll understand it's not so confusing. So my youngest was doing some college coursework, but very social. Oh my God, my youngest is was my social butterfly, and just filled with smiles and laughter. That kid is the one who is always on social media and TikTok and doing all these fun and silly things and constantly with friends and going all the time. And then of course, and my artist, of course. And then Jeff was always riding bikes, and Mr. Handyman, woodworking. My husband just constantly outdoors. He's the outdoorsman. And then me, I was so busy with, of course, the store, but constantly I would go to dance and constantly doing just social things. I never was there a quiet moment, but intentionally we filled our lives that way. And then we had my mom living with us, who's elderly with Alzheimer's. And we always took her places. We would rotate who's taking grandma to swimming and ceramics classes. And, so many things. Yeah, we were constantly doing very full life before mold. Yeah.
So I know we're going to talk more in the second interview that's going to be aired about your home and the mold that you found in your home. But just so that as we start to talk about your medical journey and the emotional journey you've been on, can you briefly tell our listeners how your mold journey happened?
Yeah. So we moved into a house that we bought right at the pandemic in March, April of 2020. And we had bought a bigger house so that we were caregiving for my elderly mom. And we were in a pretty small place with animals and, all of us in a tiny little 1,100 square foot house. We needed more space to caregive for mom. And we found the perfect place. Cute little country place with an acre of land that we could grow food on for our business, which we love, and do all the things. We had enough bedrooms that we actually could bring in a live-in to, which is one of my kiddos' friends, to help us caregive for my mom and all those things. And we moved in, and probably within 3 months, all of us started kind of feeling sick and we weren't really attributing to the house. Who would? And it got worse and worse with all of us. Of course, Jeff and I had neuropathy and joint pain and some brain fog and weird things. For Jeff, it was mold anger. We didn't know that's what it was. It was just weird. Why is he so irritable, right? For my kids, my oldest was getting insomnia, having stomach issues and allergies. We don't know what that is. And my mother was declining mentally. And then the worst by far was my youngest. And that's when I noticed that this kid, the OCD was over the top. This kid began getting motor tics that were so severe. My child couldn't hold water or without it going flying, or eat with a knife and fork without hurting themselves, literally. Then my kid was, of course, insomnia, having so many weird, bizarre things. I didn't understand, nosebleeds, and but then seizures happened. And I went, what in the world is that? And they were focal, aware, partial, very subtle, but oh my gosh, that's a seizure. And I was just baffled. So we ended up one evening, my then 21-year-old, now 22-year-old, literally it was my kid. We'd been in the house maybe 5 months, 6 months. My 21-year-old went into the kitchen, laid down on the kitchen floor like a 2-year-old toddler having a temper tantrum, and was crying, screaming, my brain is on fire. Make it stop, please. And I was like, oh my God, that's brain inflammation. What is going on? So I set out to find out what was going on. And of course, came across PANS-PANDAS, which is a brain inflammation condition that can be caused by viral, bacterial, or fungal. And I stopped and went, oh my gosh, fungal, this is a fairly new house. I sat out, we searched for it. And my whole family thought I was crazy for spending so much money when we had all these inspections done, right? On a mold inspection. But sure enough, we did. And that's how we found the mold. And it was pretty extensive. Yeah.
So did you have multiple inspectors come out or just one?
So we had a couple of different inspectors come out. We had a termite inspector. We had several inspectors. Oddly enough, the mold inspector that we went, not mold inspector, the house inspector that looked at the house before we bought it, we were in contract with another house, and he had inspected that one and told us that one was full of mold, don't get it. And we didn't get that one. It was so moldy, and we got this one instead with him. So when we got the house based on that. When we did the mold inspection in the house, we had several inspections done from several different companies because we couldn't believe the results, and we thought something was wrong. Surely that's not right.
Okay, so we know that you guys found molds and you have a very health conscious background, right? And we know that sometimes people in a home, which we've heard from both Emily and I've heard from so many people, 1 or 2 people often get sick. And we know that sometimes the entire family gets sick. It sounds like your entire family was impacted. Is that pretty accurate?
You know, I would say yes, except for Jeff. But the only thing with Jeff was that it was more irritability and anger, but we had no idea that could be attributed to mold. So he was the least impacted, I guess, if there is a least impacted one. And the rest of us were very impacted. My kiddos, the worst by far, and my elderly mother, and then me. But of course, I live a very organic, healthy lifestyle. We all kind of did, but Jeff and I the most. So I think that's why it showed up the way that it did for all of us. Yeah.
How many different doctors did you guys see trying to kind of sort what was happening with your kids?
So we own a small business. Being self-employed, we have no insurance, no medical insurance. And so that means that getting diagnosis and going to doctors is really tricky for us financially. So the bizarre way that everything kind of spun was we didn't really understand the full impact of mold and what we needed medically. The first person that started seeing doctors, of course, was my youngest. We went to a neurologist, and this was very short time when my youngest was covered by insurance from their father for a very short time. And we were able to do EEG. That's how we found out this kid's having seizures. They're not epileptic. We don't know what it is. Before we could get a full MRI, which is what they had requested, insurance was out. And of course, my kid needed the really expensive $6,000 MRI because of the motor tics and not being able to stay still in an MRI. So we saw a lot of doctors. Mainly we did naturopaths and things that you're going to pay out of pocket for anyway. But we did see several, oh my gosh, general practitioners. My oldest went to a sleep study for insomnia. We saw GI doctors and so many different specialists, paying completely 100% out of pocket for every single one. The ones that help us the most were actually a neurochiropractor, helped with my youngest seizures, at least somewhat, and the brain inflammation for both my kids. And then a couple of naturopaths that we've seen. And then of course, anything that I could do for myself. My mother has insurance because she's older and has Medicare, and she was in and out of the hospital so much and has seen tons of different doctors, but none of them attributed anything to mold, even when I would bring it up. And the extent of which the mold was, because our mold was 100% loss in 100% of the house, which I know we'll go into a little more in the other interview, but it was in every wall, ceiling, and floor with 100% loss of the house. And then that it was so extensive that even the mold remediators themselves got sick. So the chemical concoction that we had in our house, the different types of mold that we had were so toxic that it was bad. But we also even had to see vets because we lost 3 of our animals, and not sure how the others are doing. They're pretty sick too. But that was actually the first casualties, was our oldest. Well, he wasn't really that old, our 10-year-old Catahoula dog, which was Jeff's like side companion and best friend. And we had just discovered and heard the word mold. And then our dog had shut down. Kidney failure is what happened. And we had to put our dog down. And that was the first problem. That's where we saw it all. And then shortly after that, we started, of course, with mold, we're moving all around to move out, thinking we're going to remediate. Before we knew it was a full loss. And then we had animals here and there. Our oldest cat ended up paralyzing herself and ending up with kidney failure as well and dying. And then a hamster died. And so many different types of doctors, vets, you name it, we saw them.
Emily, you guys went through that too, though, right? That's part of your journey, was the whole concept of pets too. That wasn't part of my journey, but I'm sure you can empathize with that. You guys went through that with your dogs, right?
Yeah, Kuja ended up developing seizures and these benign tumors that just kept popping up all over her body. And eventually she died because she had over 13 seizures in a row. And in order to actually diagnose her properly, even though the vet said that there's no chance really she was going to survive, it would have cost us $6,000, and we didn't have the money in our account to do that. So we had to choose to put her down.
Yeah.
And she wasn't old either. She was a Doberman, and she was 9 years old, and she was healthy as a horse, ran, 3 to 5 miles with me every day, and went into mold, and it destroyed her.
Yeah, that's very similar as to what happened to our pets, is that our oldest, our 10-year-old Catahoula was just very go active. We moved into mold, and he started getting these benign tumors, and he stopped eating, and he was very depressed, and his kidneys just shut down and could no longer sustain life. And that happened really, truly within a matter of 7 to 8 months. It was very fast for our healthy dog. And then our older cat was older, but ended up paralyzing herself on accident through this mold thing. It was just the most bizarre thing. And then, of course, kidney failure as well. It's really hard when you start seeing that, because at the same time that that's happening, the parallel is watching my family's health deteriorate, because something strange happens when you move out of mold. When we're in mold, we're sick, really sick. But when you move out of mold, you unmask, and then you actually get sicker. It's really bizarre, because it's almost like now we can start to heal, but your body's so toxic overload it can't. And diseases and illnesses start turning on. They don't turn off. And that's exactly where we found ourselves. And so it's just weird, foreboding thing to watch the pets die, and then watch all my kids and my family start to get sicker and sicker every moment. It was really weird.
So where are you guys at today? You're out of your house? Like, where's your health at? Where's your
So we're out of our house, thankfully. We've been about 15, 16 months out of mold now, but really gypsying around, very transitionary. When we first moved out, we really thought we were going to be able to remediate the house. And so we were in different directions. I had my kids in one direction in a Airbnb, and then with friends and on couches. And then my elderly mother and I were in a hotel, and then we went to a different Airbnb. My husband had to stay in a tent for quite a few months with our animals that, we still have other animals that he was living in the yard. And he was also doing some of the remediation with the professionals. And so he was living on the acre of land further away from the house. So we were very dispersed. Right now, we have settled into a rent house that's not far from our store where we work. But, where we live in the Gulf Coast. And of course it's just Moldville. I've heard a lot of statistics of 50% of houses have mold, up to 88% of houses have mold. I would say in this area where we live, it's 88% of the houses have mold. Even though we tested the place where we're living, we only air tested. And so we did an ERMI, and I'm pretty sure this place has mold. We run dehumidifiers and air purifiers nonstop because it's the only way we can, but that's where we are at the moment with housing. It's still very transitionary because we're still paying for our house that is sitting completely unable for anyone to live in it because it's a mortgage and very complicated. But so we're doing what we can for now. But soon that's going to change again, and we're going to go back to, okay, do we go back to living in tents? It's hot, it's summer, what are we going to do? And doing the whole transitionary moving around thing again. Our health is horrible. So like I had said, once you move out, of course, the unmasking happens, and then you get sicker and illnesses start popping up. For my oldest, it was MCAS was the first thing that came up, where my child would literally walk outside. And this was right after moving out. And she would start going into anaphylaxis. She couldn't eat hardly anything without going into anaphylaxis. Thankfully, I was able to, as an herbalist, I was able to help her, guide her through some of that and see it immediately and know what it was. But of course, we went to allergists, we went everywhere to get diagnosis. And then that turned to POTS, which my oldest, my youngest, and myself have now. So of course, that's horrible dizzy spells and heart rate going through the roof, standing up, passing out. It's kind of scary. Feeling just horrible, panic attacky. It's awful. But my oldest has it the worst. Both my oldest and my youngest have pandas. And that is the brain inflammation condition that typically gets diagnosed with younger kiddos, but full on, this is what both of them have pretty severely. The brain inflammation is the most bizarre thing and horrible to watch. OCD, hallucinations. My youngest has it the worst by far. So my youngest, both my kids also have hyperthyroidism. Their thyroid's a mess. Their hormones are way off, just a mess, and hypoglycemia. My youngest has very severe seizures now, seizures that literally are 30 and 40-minute long. This went on for at least 5 months until we saw a neurochiropractor who could at least bring it down to more like 10-minute long seizures, 5-minute long seizures. Sometimes my kid would even go a day without them. It's just, they ebb and flow. A lot of this has to do with the heat outside, the pollen outside, all those things that reactivate mold in our bodies. All of us have mold colonized in our bodies. My youngest, oldest, and myself have pretty bad migraines from it. My oldest and I have it colonized in our sinuses and lungs. And pretty sure my oldest and I have fungal balls in our sinus cavities, which at some point is going to require surgery to get rid of, though I'm working very intently with herbs and oils to shrink it and just keep it at bay. But it causes some pretty severe migraines. My oldest has EDS, which is a hypermobility problem that has turned on because of mold. And this is causing a lot of problems where my kid will just be walking and the hip will go out of place, or an arm just from sleeping, a shoulder. And I'm constantly having to pop things back into place, or it's very painful, just tendon problems. And it's horrible watching. My youngest has hypermobility, so it's not full EADS, but it's definitely there. Unfortunately, my youngest has the most neurological problems. The type of mold in our house, we had a lot of different molds, but the Chaetomium and Stachybotrys were the worst for the neurological problems. And my youngest, Eden, has gotten hit the worst. The hallucinations are bad. Sometimes my kid will literally just be like, I'm seeing orange spots and I think there's somebody there, but I know they're not. My brain's playing tricks on me. Both my children are very high IQ kids. And I have literally watched my youngest go from high IQ, being able to put together, you can't imagine, high thinking, to not being able to read some days. It's that bad some days. Both my kids are now being tested for autism, and I really fully see this as being turned on by those toxins in the body, because there may have been subtle things beforehand, but this is just over the top now, and how things are being turned on. And my kids are totally not the same at all. Jeff had a bizarre thing happen when he was staying and living in the tent there and working on a little bit of remediation in full suit and respirators, of course, with the professionals. He was living in the tent furthest away from the house, taking all the precautions. He would do like a silkwood bath after getting out of the house during remediation to make sure he wasn't bringing in his clothes, going in the wash every day. And but still, he had a lot of brain inflammation, and his got so bad that he did end up with mycoplasma pneumonia and ended up with it in his lungs pretty bad while he was living in the tent. And that was during the time when we went through Winter Storm Uri here on the Gulf Coast, and it was snowing and it was freezing. It was horrible, horrible. Really bad time for that. But he had bizarre hallucinations where he saw purple light and rings around his eyes. It was so bizarre. The histamines that went off during that time. One thing that happened is he ended up with a a couple of sleepwalking incidents from the brain inflammation, which was really bizarre. He had never done this until he was a tiny, tiny child, a 2 and 3-year-old, and he did it a couple times as a child. That was it. And brain inflammation from the mold turned this back on. And he was living in the tent. And one night, we were all dispersed everywhere, and he was staying in the tent. And it was the middle of the night, and he literally woke up to sleepwalking and pulling his arm through the window of the house, and he had broken it with his arm, and he literally sliced his arm almost completely off, but it was from the wrist to the elbow, and it was horrifying because he was asleep when he did it and woke up. He was very disoriented, didn't know what was going on. He was by himself, and he lost so much blood. He said it was about, the best he can remember is about 2 hours of him going in and out of consciousness, trying to find his phone and figure out what was going on because it was the middle of the night. I'm sorry, I just get a little weepy. So he actually crossed over, and he saw God, and Supreme Being stood in front of him saying, do you want to go back? Or do you want to stay here with me? And he said he didn't even remember having the conversation or answering God. He just found himself back in the present moment and immediately found his phone, called me, and I was 20 minutes away. And I was able to keep him on the phone somewhat. He was slipping in and out of consciousness, but I found him. And I was able to get him to the ER. It was bad. I was off to get him in the car. It was so bad. But I got him to the ER, and they were able to first save his life. And then they were actually able to save his arm, which they didn't think they were going to be able to. He now has about 30% feeling in it. It's about a year later, a little over a year later, and he's got mobility, but he really can't feel it all, and he has a lot of extensive nerve damage from that. It causes a lot of problems, the extreme pain day by day. But he's really been working with physical therapy and trying to get what he can back from that. And then, of course, my mother has declined greatly and been in and out of the hospital a lot with kidney issues and breathing issues and bowel issues. And this is all due to the mold. Because of us moving around so much, we had to move my mom into a facility, which the whole point of moving into the house was to avoid that, to get this place for mom. And we would caregive for her. We even had a bedroom big enough that we could bring hospice in and wheelchairs, but we couldn't move her around and around, and Alzheimer's, dementia was getting worse for her. So we had to put her into a facility. And because she's in a facility, I cannot really detox her body. She's also in a fragile state for the mold. And so it's been very difficult watching her decline. Her health has been much worse, not just the mental health, her OCD is worse, just seeing other problems, her allergies are worse. And us not being able to really do much because I'm not there to help them with protocol every day. We are doing what we can with her there. I've been going through a lot of problems trying to fix the migraines for myself. I've had a lot of muscle loss and weakness, but not as much as my youngest. Eden, my youngest, is about 80% bedridden now with the seizures, and can walk, but with a cane. This is my kid that would go, do on the go all the time, go running, and can't do anything now. Very, very weak, a lot of muscle atrophy from all of the mold. My oldest is about 50% bedridden, and that's the EDS and the pain from all of the mobility problems. So because of that, one of the problems that we've all had, every last one of us, and I know this is a taboo subject, but I'm going to bring it up because it's a very real thing that has happened with people who go into mold and they don't want to talk about it, is severe depression kicks in. And I know that from a physical standpoint, mold can rob the brain of the B vitamins, the magnesium, the D vitamins, all the things that keep the brain going and the happy serotonin levels going. Being depleted from all of that, the depression has been severe. So just the physical problems has caused severe depression, let alone the extreme stress of losing everything, losing our health, losing our houses. We lost everything we owned. And when I say everything, every stick of furniture, every piece of clothing, every photo, everything. We lost 3 cars, we lost animals, we lost a lot. That causes a lot of depression as well. Every single one of us at one point or another have taken ourselves to that point of not wanting to be here anymore on this planet because it's just so hard. It is really hard. It's hard watching my own kids' health go down and their mental health go down. It's hard watching the physical health go down and not knowing how to fix it. It's hard watching our life that used to be just nothing but a shadow and a memory. It's hard watching everything that we've built, just even from our business, and not being able to be there in our business as much, watching the business decline and everything we built. It's hard watching our dreams go down. It's been really hard to watch that. My youngest has been in and out of hospitals just for not wanting to be here anymore. And that's something that I know people don't want to talk about it, but it's a very real part of mold and the mold journey. And people need to understand to know to watch for this and know it's okay, course correct it, do what you can. So we really try to do what we can. We work meditation, we work through positive brain rewiring when we can. We work so many supplements, so many herbs and essential oils in our house. We try sunshine therapy when the pots and heat intolerance will allow us. We do what we can, but But I will say I do miss watching my kids smile and laugh. I miss us being able to have those moments that make life life.
And I know we're going to talk about this in a different interview, but all of this could have been avoided had the sellers properly disclosed that home had flooded during Hurricane Harvey.
Yes, absolutely. That is exactly it. If we had just known the information, if we had all of it, all of this could have been avoided. We could have kept our health. So many things we had no idea that we were walking into. And I understand living in this area in the Gulf Coast after Hurricane Harvey, that you really have to look for that now with every building, every house. But I didn't really know it then. And I assumed that the sellers would disclose everything, that we would know what we were looking for. And oddly enough, we literally spent 7 months looking for a house to move into before we moved into that house, because we wanted to know if it flooded during Hurricane Harvey or not. And we were avoiding the houses that flooded on purpose. And lo and behold, we bought one with the worst flooding ever, and we didn't know.
So we want to give people an opportunity to support you guys, right? We're going to talk about your business. We're going to talk about ways Malachi's message can help you, because and I'm just thinking, when we did our interview with Dr. Krista, she said mold is mean. And I just kept thinking as you were talking that mold is mean. And you said you had a whole life before this, your family did. And I feel like the meanness of mold literally just stripped your life into pieces, and it's not whole anymore. That's not okay. Like this, it's not okay that something like Emily said that could have been avoided stripped your family of so much joy and so much life. It's not acceptable. It's why we do what we do and why we want to help you. Before we do that, we need to quickly thank one of our corporate sponsors, and then we want to hear about your business, and we want to give people an opportunity to be able to help your family out. One of our event sponsors today is Natural Regenesis. Natural Regenesis strives to bring you the best and most cost-effective products on the market. They are currently stocking yogurt kits, various skin creams, a variety of capsules, supplements. If you look at their website, it is absolutely loaded. They ship orders globally. So if you want to check them out, please go to naturalregenesis.net. We'll also put that link in this comment section so people can check them out. Thank you for sponsoring Malachi's message.
You and your family and your business rose up to help the people that were victims of Hurricane Harvey. And now you're actually a victim of Hurricane Harvey because of a home that you bought that the sellers didn't properly disclose that it did flood during Hurricane Harvey. Tell us about your business, because your business is amazing. Before I ever knew that y'all went through mold, I saw your business. Y'all have amazing products, but tell us about your family-owned business.
Yeah, so we own and run Natural Living Organic Food Co-op and Cafe in League City, Texas, where we have a kind of a unique culmination. We work with our local organic farmers, backyard gardeners. We grow some food ourselves, and we put together produce shares that our members can purchase. We offer it weekly, but our members have the flexibility of getting it when they want. You don't even have to be a member to shop with us, because we have it's like a mini grocery store that looks like an old country general store when you walk in. We have everything in bulk. We do organic bulk dry goods and some packaged goods, and we have organic herbs. We have an herb room where we teach people to make their own medicine from organic herbs. We even have spices. Then we also make some medicinal herbal medicines ourselves and teach people how to use it. We have an organic cafe that actually, it's a vegan cafe, and the reason we do that is so that we can make it allergen friendly, where we have completely gluten-free, dairy-free, corn-free, soy-free, corn and sugar-free items on our cafe. We actually have our whole business to really focus on those with autoimmune disorders or illnesses that they're clearing, and natural healthy lifestyle. That's what we do. And we have had our business for about 14, 15 years now, and working really closely with people in our community that also do this. We focus on sustainability. We working with our local farmers, local people who have organic bath and body products or jewelry or woodworking, things that they make, because we really work close with our community. And it's interesting that you said that about Hurricane Harvey. Yeah, we have spent years really helping out anytime tragedy has struck in our area. The co-op has been a huge source for helping others. When Hurricane Harvey hit, we gave out over $6,000 of organic foods and medicine to families who had nothing and just lost everything. We connected families that had flooded and those who didn't, and we connected those who could help with those who needed help. And we help people find cars, find housing, get clothing, find replacements for things that they needed. And we literally spent months feeding a lot of these families. And it's just interesting because during that time, the house that we were in back then did not flood. And neither did the store. We were very, very fortunate that we could do that. And then the irony, of course, ends up that we end up in a house that almost takes our life. And it was a Hurricane Harvey house. We just didn't know that at the time. Yeah, our business has helped a lot of other people, even through the Santa Fe school shooting. We gave herbal medicine to a lot of those families that needed it. We have really helped out with a lot of things. When the pandemic first hit, we were putting together herbal kits, and thank you, snacks for the nurses who were working long hours and the doctors working long hours. So we've done a lot in our community. It's just interesting, this past year and a half that we've been sick, our family hasn't been able to be at our family store as much. And so we've really seen the impact financially on that business, and we're really starting to struggle. We're trying to turn it around now that I'm feeling a little bit better and Jeff's feeling a little bit better, to try and be there more. But that's kind of the state that we're in now, is turn the boat away from the iceberg to bring it back. Yeah.
I know that we want to give people an opportunity to help you too. And you guys you applied for assistance. And like I said, your story kind of blew us away. So on our homepage, it will be posted. If you scroll down on our homepage, or if you go to donate and click under personal campaigns, the Piper story is there in written form. And there's also a place where you can help them cover some of the medical bills that they have had to pay for out of pocket. You can imagine hearing their story and the number of medical bills that they've had to pay for. It's extraordinary. It is so much money. So we want to help them. We want to reimburse some of that so that they can keep functioning and keep fighting for their health and keep fighting for their family and keep fighting to find a whole life again. So please go check out malachi'smessage.org. Either scroll down to find their beautiful picture. And I think that's your mother in the picture too, right? The picture you submitted. Yeah. And a beautiful smile. That was the first thing I noticed, was her smile. Or you can go to our donate button and click on personal campaigns, and you will find the Piper family's story there. Lisa, thank you so much. We're excited to share this interview, to share the next interview, and to continue to try and get you guys some support.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity to tell our story and maybe help others who have been in mold understand it, and those who have not been in mold know how to avoid it. Yeah, thank you.